So we were going through Kalipa in the previous meeting. I would recapitulate the Kalipas, which is to me a complex one, and also at certain things I'd like to think through with you, because I'm not sure what my understanding is right or not, right? One is Kalipa stands distinct from other three pas, three verses, in the following respects. One, it doesn't have a Urichir of its own, like other pas have. So it uses the Urichir of Venba, which is Kaichir. It also uses the Urichir of Asriyappa, which is Yerchir with Uriyasai, that is ending in Nebu and Nerebu. So it differentiates itself from other verses only by Tadai. Right? And its Tadai is the Vensir, which ends in Ner. The Vendalai is followed by Ner, whereas in Kalipa it is followed by Nire. Right? But it also allows Vendalai, so you will have Kalitalai. When the Kalitalai is present, in addition to Vendalai, the commentators say that it is Sirapudai Kalitalai. So Kalitalai makes it clearly Kalipa. Then it admits meters from other paths. You find Venba meter as well as Asriya meter in this one. But the crucial differentiating fact about Kalipa is that it has its own internal units, right? Which is true of Vanjipa also. Vanjipa also has the first part, and then Tanipchal, and then Suridaham, right? This one, as we said previously, has three internal units, which are Taravu, Talisai, and Tanichal, and Suridaham. So Talisai is the internal unit which is not with Vanjipa. So Talisai, we could say, is a defining feature of Kalipa. Right? The other so in a sense, you could say that Kalipa is syncretic in nature. That is, it admits the elements of other paths. And as I said, it is thematically organized with internal units rather than sequence of lines alone. And the interesting point is that this arrangement of internal units could be multiple. See, the minimalist grammar would have the order which I just now said, Taravu, Talisai, and Tanichal, and Suridaham. But you could, I mean, this would be called Talisai Kalipa. And Talisai is a defining feature of Kalipa. And since it comes in threes, normally, it is called Ottalisai. So if you have a Talisai repeated 3 times. But these 4 units also come in different order. And also they could come more than once, like Talisai, Tanichal, then again Talisai, Tanichal, see, like that. So these two factors, that is, the order could be reorganized, and also the number of units could vary. Right? So if that happens, that is called the Kochaha Kalipa. Yeah. I mean, Kochaham is, I look at it in two ways, you see. One, probably it derives from the word Kochai, which is a non-standard, right? The other one it relates, which commentators also point out, is Kosuvam. Kosuvam is the pleats in a sari, right? So it is a kind of stacking these units, and that's why it gets the name Kochaha. Kalipa. So the other distinguishing factor of Kalipa is Tolhapiam specifically says that it is for the devotional theme, right, besides the Aham themes. Right. You remember that see, one classification of Uttarisai Kalipa is Ahanile Kalipa and then Tevar Paravum Kalipa, right? So it is for Aham as well as for devotional verses. And the interesting point is that it doesn't have as its subject matter other themes of Puram. Right? Kalipa is not for Padandinai and things like that. So the Puram theme is restricted to devotion. See, if that is part, I mean, that's a later part of Puram. So that's why Kalipa is also called Tevabani, right? That is the devotional music, like that. And the last distinguishing point about Kalipa is that it is amenable to singing. Right? Tolapin clearly says that this is the preferred one for singing and also for acting. Right? So this is the path for Nadaham. Right? So from this property, we find the dialogue or dyad organization of Kalipa, besides the monologue, which you find all other poems, right? So, among all the parts, this is identified to be suitable for, not suitable, I mean, this is the one in which you find dialogues, right? So if you have a dialogue, then you call it Ural Kali. Yeah, Ural is interchanging or something like that. These are the general features of Kalipa. The other relation of Kalipa with the other part is that it is a kin of Venba, as Tolapium points out. So it is a kin of Venba, that is, the relationship between Kalipa and Venba is multifold. One thing is, the Suridaham could be in Venba meter. So that's one relation between Kalipa and Venba. But Venba as Suridaham is an alternate to Asaryapa. And Asaryapa is the preferred Suridaham for Kalipa, but you could have Venba also. The second relationship of Kalipa and Venba is that, as I mentioned, it has Vensi. Kalchi is its seed, and it also uses Vendalai, that is Kai Ned, but Kai Nirai would be the preferred one. That would be clearly Kalitale. So in this case, I think it is interesting to note that another, Asariya Urichir also could occur in Kalipa. So Asariya Urichir would be let's say, ending in Nerbu. Instead of scanning it as Nerbu, if you take it as Ner, it will end up as Kaichir. So it is not just for nothing that Asariya Urichir and Vensir become features of Kalipa, right? There is some shared thing between them, right? And then, as far as the lines are concerned, it is 4 in the minimalist grammar, but it can go to 5 or 6 here, Adi. So there is no limit given in Tolkappiyam. He simply says it could exceed Alavati. So that is not Adi. And we saw that the Osai is Turlalosai. Turlalosai is jumping. I'm just guessing it. The name traditionally explained is that it has the Osai of up and down, up and down, up and down. The editor of Kalitoha is that you get that Osai when the seeds are Nirai Ner. So he takes Nirai as strong and Ner as light. So Nirai Ner would be strong light, strong light. And I don't know what the basis of that is, but it seems to me, by looking at the kind of omnibus quality of Kalitohai, where you have other parts coming within it, that would naturally affect the rhythm, right? If you have Kali Adi and then you have Venba Adi, and the Osais are different. So maybe Tullal also means that jumping from one Osai to another, there's a kind of jumping. I don't know. This is purely my guess. And then, as I said, Talisai is the crucial thing defining Kalipa, which they take Tal, Perasariya takes it to be deep, right? Taram is a word, and he equates it with Aram, so it's deep Isai. We don't know what they exactly mean by Isai as opposed to Osai. Sometimes they are used interchangeably. If you take that Isai is for melody, whatever it means, it's some kind of deep melody, and they use the word verb taram vattu, right? But the crucial point they make is that the talam, whatever that melody means, is deeper than or lower than the Isai of Taravu. Right? So there is a difference in the melody between the Taravu and Tadisai, right? And also we saw also the number of lines of Tadisai cannot exceed the number of lines of Taravu. Right? If Taravu is 3, this would be 3, but Taravu could be 4, then it could still be 3, but it does not exceed the size of Taravu. So there are some internal relationships between Taravu and Tadisai. So this is the general features of Kalipa. See, the last week after the class, I sent you a handout, this scanned version of an Uttalisai Kalipa, right? If you look at it, you will notice that so let's say that the first line, Valnadungan Panihura Vannam Verai Therindu. The first Thalai is, I mean, all of them except, okay, so they are in Muvasai, right? Ner, Nirai, Ner, and that is followed by Nirai, that is Kalithalai, right? But when you come to the next one, Panikura Vannam Veru, that's Ner, that is Vendalai. So Vendalai is also permitted or admitted in Kalipa. The next one is also Vendalai, right? And if you take the last seed, it is Ner Niraivu. It could also be Ner Nirai Ner. Right? If you take it as Ner Nirai Ner, you have Muvasai, and that will follow the general pattern of Kalita. Right? So in my count, there are 9 different thalais in these 3 lines. Of the 9, 6 are Kalithalai and 3 are Vendalai. Right? So by statistical preponderance, Kalithalai is more. That qualifies this to be Kalipa. That is one thing. Right? And the other thing I notice that commentators also make, I think I'm right, but so the Thalai, the first Thalai seems to have some preeminence. Right? A Pa would be saying that Kalittalayan Vandadu, right? If they say something like that, say one could be the preponderance in numerical, statistical preponderance, and other one is if the first seer is Kalithalai, then that somehow gives weight to the Thalai of the poem.
Okay.
So the first seems to play a role in that, right? So the Ilam Purana says that is, no, I think this is from Yapparangalam, Sirappude Kalithalayal Vandadu. So because of the large number of Kalithalai, you have that. Then the next 3 are Thalis. I gave 1 in the handout, but all 3 you could you have Vensir Nirai, that is Kalithalai, right? Specific to Kalithalai, and that also makes it Kalipa. Right? The reason I mentioned this is that like Taravu, Tharisai also would be in Kalimita. That is the baseline. Right? But it could also be in Venba. Right? Then it puts under Kochaham. Right? So the Kochaham, as I said, varies in number of internal units. It also varies in the arrangement of the internal units. It also varies in terms of the meter of Thalisa. Right? So the Kochaham is a kind of catch-all kind of thing, right? Yeah.
But so this Tharisai that you gave us is 2 lines or 1 line? 2 lines.
These are two lines.
2 Alavadi, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But so when you say that the Taravu and the Tharisai need to be, I mean that the Tharisai cannot be larger than the Taravu, means in this case that the whole Tharisai here is going to be 6 lines.
No, each one, each talisay.
Each talisay cannot. Okay, but then it can be attached again and again, and
Yeah,
so the
right,
talisay section
right,
can be very
yeah.
long.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, right. The 3 is the minimal, but you could have
Many
than
more.
one, yeah,
Okay,
right.
okay.
And also, when you have Kochaham, see the general order is Tanichal follows Talisai, which could be 3, right? And there are poems where there is Tanichal after each Talisai, right? That would also belong to Kochaham.
Okay.
Right? So that is another variation in the arrangement of thing. I read somewhere that Tanichal could begin a Talisay also, but I haven't found an example of that. Right? So I mean, I think the point is that when you have this kind of mixing of Talai and mixing of Adi, the question comes how you call it a particular pa.
Yeah.
Right? So this, see one, I mean, as far as Kalipa is concerned, you can take only Talai, right? Because it doesn't have its own chi, Uruchi. Yeah. If it is Uruchi, that would determine what pa it is, right? But Kali Talai also could be mixed with other Talais, right? In that case, you go by the largest number of Talai, Kali Talai, and also I think the first seal has some weight, right? If if the first one has Kali Talai, and this is much more crucial. We saw when you look at the fourth kind of Kalipa, right? There are 4 kinds of Kalipa. One is Talisai, the other is Kochaham, right? And the third one is Ural, and the fourth one is Kali Venba. Right? So Kali Venba basically is it is different from rest of Kalipas in significant ways. One thing, it doesn't have the internal units as you have in the other. Other 2. Even Ural Kali doesn't have the 4-unit organization, right? So it is only 1 unit, you see, in that. And it would have the Venn body, that is Verladi, and it is called and also the Tolkapiam gives certain other defining features. It comes in a single theme. It says Oru Purul Nudaliya. Right? I think Oru Purul Nudaliya, he means that without the other internal units. Right? They are not just unit, as we saw earlier. The Taravu is a kind of prologue, right? And Talisai is the repetition of a theme, right? So they have some thematic function. Theme not in the sense of Agampur, not that kind of thing. So the units also signify signify the different functions with the unit plays within the poem. Whereas in Kali Venba, there's no such thing. It's just like Venba, right? Right. So what makes it Kali Venba is there is Kali Talai in it.
Okay.
Right? So that is a crucial factor because Venba is rigid. You cannot allow any Talai into it. Okay? So if somebody throws in Kali Talai, you cannot say Venba violates or you make an exception to Venba. You say it's a different one.
Okay.
right? So it cannot be Venba because Pirathalai Viravi Vandadu, right? So this is, this seems to come from the fact that Venba is defined in a rigid way, right? It doesn't allow the mixing of other things, right? So if anything happens, it should be something else. It cannot be Venba, right?
But so even in Tulhapiam, when he talks about Kalivenba,
Kalivenba, yeah.
he mentions Tarai as being one of its
Right.
defining characteristics.
Yeah, it must have Kalitali somewhere.
It must
And
have
the
Kalitala.
preferred place is the last line.
Okay.
So the last line are maybe the ending seal. I should verify that. So let's say it should end in Kalitale. Then it becomes Kalivenba. Right?
Okay.
Everything else is Venba. Right?
It's kind of interesting because Tarai has this, seems that early on it has this really strange status, no? It's not an Urupu, it's not, but it's important to distinguish paths.
Yeah,
Even
from what I see that there are 3 or 4 things which distinguish one pa from other.
Yeah.
Right? One is the number of asais in a seer, right? So it could be irasechi or muvasechi, right? And the next one is some seeds are privileged for a particular pa, right? Urichir. So the urichir would define what a pa is. And the third thing is the length of adi in terms of seer, right? It is 4 seer or Vanjipa has Irusiradi, whereas Venba has 4 Siradi. So these are the factors which distinguish one pa from the other. And Tolhapiam tries to, which is not the factor in Yapparangalam, differentiate them in terms of the subject matter of these things, like what is aham, what deals with aham, what is sangadam, etc. But I see that empirically it doesn't hold, right? Because there's a lot of overlapping. See, Kaikile, for example, is assigned for Venba. And Muttolairam is a good example of Kaliktohai, Kaikile in Venba. But you have Kaliktohai also a lot of Kaikile poems, right? So it's not so exclusive. So I would take the differentiation of pa on the basis of the subject matter with a pinch of salt. Right? It's I don't know what they mean by that. See, it's like that. And Kali-Venba must be more of Venba than Kali, as we now recognize. So that is also given out by the fact that out of the 150 verses in Kalitohai, only 8 are Kali-Venba.
Okay.
The rest are, most of them are Ottarisi Kali. Ottarisi and Kochaka Kali. Right? So Uralgali and Kali-Venba are very few in Kalitohai. If there is any indication of the popularity of a particular kind of Kalipa, this would say that these were not popular, or we could say that the popularity comes later, in the sense that the Kali-Venba is getting more and more popular when it comes to the Bhakti poems, particularly the Tirumurai, right? So in Tirumurai, that is organized in terms of Kanni, that is pairs of lines, like 2 eyes, you see, that's the Kanni, see, which is 2, and you have Tirukailaya Jnana Ula entirely in Kali-Venba, right? and Nambianda Nambi's Alude Pillayar Tirumale is in Kalivenba. And Nakira's Potitru Kalivenba in the title itself. So this is getting popular in that, but Sangam has a very limited occurrence, you see, of this. Then because of this closeness between Venba and Kalipa, Veerasoliam takes it to be a kind of Venba. Right? So what the problem is, as I pointed out earlier, you are breaking the rigidity of Venba. Right? See, the Veerasoliam's classification has a consequence, right? So you had to make Venba more flexible than other people would allow. That is, you could have a Venba where you can throw in Kalitale. Right? That is not acceptable to other grammarians. So to get a feel of this, let us quickly go through this Kali. I gave a handout to see which is
last time.
Yeah, last time Kochaha Kali. Right, it is Tolgapiyam Ilamburanam. I think the last set of handouts, this one.
Tolgapiyam Ilamburanam. Wait a second, I cannot find it. I have the Yaparangalam here.
Yeah, Yaparangalam was the previous week, and
for this week
yeah,
you gave
this
it.
Week, yeah.
Okay, yes, then I'll find it. These two examples of Kalivemba.
Kalivenba, that, okay,
Yeah.
So in that set you have that.
Right? Maraya, Maralka.
Yeah, right. So you have Kalivenba first, right? So let us look at Kalivenba then. Okay. If you take Kalivenba, there are two illustrations. You have Kalivenba, right? Yeah.
The Maria one?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, this is Kalivenba, right? You could see that it doesn't have Taravu, Suridaham, Tanichur, etc., right? So, so that's one feature of Kalivenba, and it has Nachi ready, right? Maraya, Maral Kavara, Mari Varappa, like that. And the last one is Muchir. So that's a characteristic of Venba. So this qualifies it to be Venba. And you have both Yerchir and Venzir Vendale. So Yerchir is you have Ma Ner, Vilam Nirai, sorry, Ma Nirai and Vilam Ner, that is Wanda Talai in Venba. You find that if you look at the first one, Maraya, that ends in Ner, right? Marankavara, that begins with Nirai, so that is Vensi, Yetsi Vendalai. Right, so you have that, and you have Vensir Vendalai also. Right? So there is Kalitale somewhere, I didn't check each one, so it must qualify it to be a Kalivenba, otherwise it would be a Venba. Right? So it becomes Kalivenba because there must be Kalitale somewhere in that. Right? But the argument which Ilambulnar gives in the commentary below that, he doesn't take that to do, I mean, he is asking the question why this is Kalivenba. Right? And the reason he gives is going by the subject matter. Okay. Right? So he says that the subject matter of this particular verse is not any of the Uripul, 5 Uripul. He says that Iruttal Irangal Udal கைக்கிளை பெருந்தனை சொல்லப்பட்ட பொருள் ஏழனுள்ளும் யாதானும் ஒரு பொருளை குறித்து so the end தொகுத்து வரும் நிலைமை தன்றி right? So it doesn't have any of those things which would be the property of Venba, and therefore it is Kalipa, right? So he, even though he says is Vendalayan Vanda Venkalipa, right? So it's clear that the features you have is for Venba. So what we should look for is why it is a Kalipa rather than Venba, right? So he takes it to be a Kalipa, but it comes with Vendalai. That Kalipa allows Vendalai, right? Therefore it's okay. But the crucial question is why this is Kalipa, right? That's why I think there must be Kalitalai. That would be Vensir followed by Nirai. Right?
Okay, Vensir, that means
Kaichi followed by Nirai is specific to Kali. It must be somewhere there. Because the Iramburana's explanation doesn't bring that out. He takes, I think he takes this as a Kaikile poem, and that is for Parivadal, and Parivadal and Kalipa have certain similarities, and therefore this is Kalipa, right? But there must be a simpler way of saying why this is Kalipa, right? You take the second example of Kalivach, right? This is a longer Venba. If you take the first, it has North Chi ready, so that's a Venba. And then you have Paul ends in Ner, and Kare begins with Nirai, so that is Vendalai. Yet Chi Vendalai. So that suggests that it is Venba, but he says that Ayat Tarayan Vanda Kali Venba. So there are other Tarais in it. If it is a pure Venba, you cannot have Ayal Tarai. Right? So one Ayal Tarai must be Kali Tarai, and therefore it becomes Kali Venba. Right? So it seems that Kali Venba is determined by the process of finding out that there is nothing in it which violates the rules of Venba. Right? So it's a kind of negative definition of Kali Venba.
So it's a Venba with a problem, but it's nice enough that you don't want to throw it out.
My guess is in Tamil prosody you don't throw out anything. You give a
and
new
then
name
you put
and
it inside a Kalitukai. And
Kalipa.
there it is.
Yeah, you put it under Kalipa, right? I think that is the flexibility of Tamil part, right? So now let us go to the other handout I gave, Kochaha Kali.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Kochaha Kali, as I said, is a kind of omnibus kind of part. Okay. So the first part, or first unit is Taravu, right? Okay. Okay. And Ilamborna say, Idanul Irandam Adi Ainjiran Vandadu. Right? So the second line has 5 C's rather than 4 C's. Right? So it's not.
Which one are we looking at?
It's Kamar Kadumpunal Kalandevu Kalandemod Aduwa Aduwal Tamarikan.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first line has Natsir. The second line has 5. Right. Right. So I mean, as I said, the Kalipa, the minimalist one is 4 Natsir. adi, right? Like Venba, right? It's a Nazi. But it could also have 5 and 6. That is, it could have Nediladi and Kali Nediladi, and this has the 5.
Sorry, but you in the Taravu, you are the second line is the Tamarai Kan.
Yeah.
But as it is printed here, it has 4 sir. Tamarai Kan, Pudai Tanji,
No, it's Talan, then Tadanodu. Yeah, Talan, okay. I think the split is not clear, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the 5 sir because I thought Tamarai Kan is something like Ner Nirai Ner.
Yeah.
Pudai Tanji.
This is Nirai Ner Ner.
And then Talarunda Dano.
Yeah, Talandadu would be Nirai Nirai Ner.
Okay.
Right. And then you have Nirai.
Doru.
Yeah, Nirai Nirai. Right.
Hala.
Yeah. So this is Nirai Tolu is Nirai, Kala is Nirai.
Okay.
Yeah, you are right. It has 4, but Ilamburanar Kaman, Idu Taravu, Idanul Irandamadi Anjiran Vandadu.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not Anjir, it's like 4, right?
I mean, at least as it is printed, like it maybe can be split again with 5, huh? Because some of maybe.
Yeah, it's a problem, but for our point that Kochaham would have, would also have the extra length of Adi.
Right?
So that's why he says Anjiran Vandadu, right? Then, yeah.
So is the last cheer?
Yeah.
As it's printed, it ends in Nirai, right?
It ends in Nirai, right?
Yeah.
Perumayale, right?
So
if it is if it is a Muchir ending in Nirai, it should be Vanjichir, right? Right. You know.
But Perumaya.
Peru is Nirai.
Peru
is Nirai. Mai is Ner. Yale is Nirai.
Okay.
Right. Unless and you could also take. Remember that Mai could be Aihara Kurukam. Right? If it is Aihara Kurukam, then it is 1. So it would be Nirai Nirai Ner. Yeah, it's quite possible. Yeah, I think that's how it would be. Would be scanned, right? We have. Okay. Then you have Tarisai following that. So Avanum Tan. Right. So here Ilamburnar says Mudakkan Nendradu Koon. Right. Avanundan. So he takes Avanundan as a koon, that is as a tanichol, which means that it is outside the seal.
Okay.
Seal structure of the Adi.
Okay.
Right. So in that case, you would still have Nazi Adi with a koon. Instead of stating it as 5C ready.
Okay.
Right?
And
so the Tanichol has that, it gives you that flexibility, right? You could, we also saw earlier when there is a problem of the seal structure of an Adi, you could look whether there is a Tanichol, so you can take it out, a Tanichol, and then say it doesn't violate.
Okay.
Right? And okay.
Also, that is the one, the Tanichol at the beginning of the Tarisai that you hadn't found an example of.
Yeah. So if you arrange it like Avanundan as a separate line, then that would be Tanichal preceding.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Right. So this is. This is another possibility of doing that. I didn't realize that our editors have so much option. Right. That's a wrong impression we learn in school, that this is fixed. I mean, they have given you the God's version. See this, right? So you're right. I mean, it could be Tanichal as a separate one, but it would be a case of Tanichal coming
in
before.
the beginning.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You have this one, the Tanichol at the end too, this Yenavang.
Yeah, there is also another one at
Yeah.
the end, right? Okay. So then, so he says, when you come to the second Talisai, Sirigudi Ire, Idan Mudal, that's the first line, is Asriyadi.
Asriyadi.
This is an Asriyadi because you have Sirikudi would be Nirai, and
Ire, Ner.
yeah, okay. So that would, okay. Sirugudi Ire. Okay. So it would be Nirai Ne, that would be Velladi, right? Not Asariyadi. Okay.
But because it's only Yarsir.
Yeah, Yerchir, I mean, okay. Now, what is assigned for Kalit Part 2 is Asariya Urichi. Right? So, Yerchir could come in any part, right? It's a kind of universal seed. So, I'm wondering why he calls it Asariya Adi, right? So, it could be Velladi, right? It could be Venbadi. Sirukudi Ire. So it is the heterogeneous Tale. Am I right? Right.
Yeah, it's heterogeneous, so
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So I don't know why he says that. Okay, Velladi. Okay. But I mean, it's not a problem per se, because as I said, when it comes to Kochaham, it doesn't have to be Kaliyadi, right? It could be Velladi. Right? See, one of the features of Kochaham is Talisai can be other than Kalitale. Right? It could have Velladi. That's what the example is. The problem is why Elambunnar calls it Asriyadi. I can't say he made a mistake.
I mean, he's saying a few weird things, including that like in the Taravu there were 5 seer. This is Assyria. Maybe the.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, that's a different problem. I mean, this explains Kochaham, that you have Tarisai without Kalitalai, therefore it has an additional feature of Kochaham, right?
Okay.
For our purposes, that is that's enough now, right? Imundrum Kochaham. So these Talisai are Kochaham because they are not in Kaliyadi, they are in a different Tadi. Okay, it may not be Asriyadi, but it is Velladi, right? Yeah. So that is why it is called Kochaham, right? And then you have Tanichol, and then you have Suridham at the end. Vellach Suridamahi Idai Vandadu.
Okay.
So this is Vellachuridam, that is Suridam in Velladi, when body. I think that was Arathodu ends in Ner, and Nin is Ner, so that is Velladi. It works there. And the interesting point is that Idai Vandadu.
Okay.
So Suridam is the end, that's the epilogue, right?
Uh-huh.
But it comes because the poem, the verse runs behind that.
So it
right?
happens
in the middle.
In the middle.
right, right.
So and the
Yeah. So this is Yetzir Vendala. I think there's no problem with that.
okay, and the second Adi has 3 sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The one question I have about the 3 sir is that I understand Vennayar, I understand Kuitturaital, but what is Yai?
Pardon me?
How do Yai is just one Nair?
Yeah.
I thought it should be at least Nair.
Okay. No, so this is like Venba, which ends in Asachir.
Okay.
Right? So the Venba would end in Muchiradi.
Yeah.
And the last one would be Asachi, that is one Asai becoming a Sir.
Right.
So there are specific places for Asachi, that is, an Asai itself becoming a Sir is there, and one place is this.
Okay,
that is it's the last Sir of Venba.
Right.
Right. So that's how you have
Yai.
this.
Okay.
You have Yai, right? And then this is the is followed by 2 Kochagam. Kochagam here, let's understand as Talisai, not in Kali meter, right? That is that's a Kochagam here. So instead of 3 lines, this Talisai has 4 lines each, and also not 3, only 2.
Okay.
Right. As I said, so the Kochagam doesn't follow not only the arrangement order, but also the number in it, right?
Okay.
But it follows the rule that it is shorter than Taravu. Taravu has 6 lines, and this has 4 lines.
Okay.
Even though it doesn't have the minimalist of 3 lines, right? So these two.
Okay.
These two you have. Then again you go to Tanichal,
Okay.
right? And then you have okay.
Parian.
Idu Peran. Okay. So I will come to okay. Okay. So far we said that Kalipa has 4 internal units, right? Taravu, Talisai, Tanichal, Suridaham, right? And then there are other units which could be added, right? One unit is Ambodarangam. So Ambodarangam is a Sanskrit word. Ambu is for Appu, water. So it is a water wave. So the commentator's explanation is that it's a kind of shrinking structure. So you start with the largest number of C's and then go down.
Okay.
So, and the Tamil name for that is N. So Ambodarangam and N are the same. Right?
Okay.
And the Peran is the limit of that. So that is 16. Right? So if one section has 16 C's, that is Peran. A big N, big number. Right? So if you count, leave the 2 lines, if you count from Punavengai, Taduraikum, Punnarimundi, up to that, there are 16 C's in that.
I mean, in this Nanna Talivaru.
You leave that for the time being, right? I don't know what that is.
But that is supposed to be the pair N.
This is what he says, but it is less than 16, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Yeah, it's 8 C's.
Malay. I mean, but it's 8 per
See.
line.
No. See, I mean, we'll come to that 2 line, right?
Yeah.
You take the one starting with Punal Vengai,
Punavengai.
Tadurekum, Punnarai, Mundil.
But that he calls Tarisai.
Yeah,
The
right.
commentator,
Right.
Okay.
I'll come to. Okay. Okay. So see, this is the way Tarisai is organized. Right. See, one is in 3s, right, with the same number of asais in it.
Okay.
And one would be, it would have Kalittalai,
Mm-hmm.
but it would have other Talai also in Kochaham.
Mm-hmm.
And Kochaham allows another thing, that it's a kind of structure which narrows when it comes down, right? So if you take the first, I mean the 2 Punal Venkai Tadurekum, right? That has 16 Cs.
Okay.
The next one also has 16, and the one after it has 8 C. Okay. So Maidavul Verpan Manavani Kanamat Kayyar Pudiverum Kannum Kannahumo. That has 8 Cs. Right.
Yeah.
So okay. So you have here starting with 16 and going to 18.
To 8.
8.
Okay.
So see, I'm not clear. I mean, some commentators say that you should the reduction should go in half, 16, 8, 4, 2. Right.
In terms of seer.
Seeds, right? But sometimes you find it in terms of lines also, right? Okay.
Okay.
So 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 okay. Let's take see, if we take after Tanichal, Nanna Talaivarum Ellai Namarmalai, right? So the number of C's are 8. Right. So this okay. See, I don't know why.
This
Okay.
is pair N.
Pair N, right?
Okay.
So okay. See, from what I understand is that there are 4 N's, right, or 4 waves, right? 16 is the top. That's called pair N, and 2 is at the bottom. That's called citron.
Okay.
Right? And the 8 is called Idayan, so the number in between.
Okay.
Right? And if it is 4, it's called Aravan. Aravu is 4, right?
Okay.
That's the thing. So that is the thing which the commentators describe these things. So in that case, the first cannot be parent. It should be Idayan, 8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So similarly, that Maidavul Verpan Mani Manavani Kanamal, that's also it's 8 seed, right? So by my understanding, then it should be Idayan. So I don't know how to explain the description of Lamborghini here. But the basic idea is the Kochama has that structure, right? It starts with a large number of Cs and then goes
The Ambodarangam.
Ambodarangam.
So this is something that you would find in Kalippa after the Tarisai. or at any point.
It is after Talisai, yeah.
And then would be another thing in which structure, in which determined by the lines, by the length of the lines, how many
Length of
sears,
sears, yeah.
how many sears in a line, or in a
Total that segment.
Total that segment, and it's usually it goes down.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have one part with more sears, and then one part.
Yeah, right.
With
That's
less,
the way
less,
it is.
less.
That's the way it is structured, right? But the particular analysis of Iramburanar gives a problem, right? So let me see whether there are any perfect example of this, right? Okay.
I mean, it almost seems like he's putting this second Tarisai in between this pair and.
Yeah, right.
But I don't understand whether this second Tarisai is Ambodarangam or Tarisai.
No, Talisai is different from Ambodarangam. Okay. Let me present my difficulty in that. Okay. What is Ambodarangam? The commentators give it as an additional urupu.
Right. Of Kalipa.
Of Kalipa. So 4, and this one 5, and then there is another one urupu. Right? And the commentators also call Kochagam as a urupu. Right, good. But my sense is that they are not urupu in the sense of the other 4 are there, which have a thematic function. So they are variations of presenting the internal, internal units, right? In Kochagam, as he said, that it could have in another meter, right? So that doesn't. So let's say, let me put it this way. See, when Talisai is in Kalipa, is Talisai, which is a unit, okay, and when Talisai is in Venba, right, it is called Kochagam, and Kochagam is a unit, right? But my sense is that it is one way of presenting Talisai in terms of meter, right? So that's what I thought I would think through with you. I mean, it's. It doesn't seem to. It doesn't make sense to consider them as a urupu, right? Unless we have a much broader sense of urupu, which Tolapyam gives in the Sayuriya Sutram. See, he gives not only the prosodic units but also the poetic units and everything.
Okay.
So the urupu has some kind of larger sense. So if a urupu has a variation, then that's also a urupu. Right? That's how they look at it. Right? Okay. So you have Talisai, which has certain characteristics, and if there is a change in that, it becomes another urupu. Right? I don't know, maybe that's one kind of logic. Right? So any variation in a urupu would make a different urupu. Right? That's what they consider. I mean, Tolapyam also seems to think that way, because in I think Tolapyam commented, say Arume, so 6 bodies are 6 parts, 6 organs, right? As urupu, right? So there is the tradition is to take Kochagam as a separate urupu and Ambodarangam as a separate urupu, rather than the way of presenting the line.
Because you said there is nothing thematic which is specific to these parts.
Yeah, right. So,
because
so that's an open question. I would say that I told you my bias about this. I mean, not taking it as a urupu, right?
Right.
See,
Because
see, urupu is defined by the function, not by the form. Right.
okay, I don't know where she takes it from, but in this article by Niklas, Ulrike Niklas that I have here, I think both, I mean, Ambodarangam is about praise. Ambodarangam praises the person's grace or heroism or the grandeur of actions.
Yeah, there is always a tendency to differentiate these kinds of paths as well as the urupu in terms of the subject matter. I'm a little hesitant about that.
Okay.
Because it's not very clear cut. Right? So, I mean, we have all Asariyam in the praise poems, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just Kalipa, Amodharangam in Kalipa, which is.
But doesn't Yaparunga Karikai make that distinction? Doesn't because that's I think where she got this from. I mean, she.
Yeah, very likely. I don't know where Yaparangalam got
Okay.
it, right?
So
Yeah.
it may just be
Yeah, right,
Okay,
right. Because even if you put all the, I haven't done it. If you put make a list of subject matters and the list of paths, which Tolapya says, there's so much overlap between the two. I don't see one-to-one correspondence between the two, right?
So, but let's say in a later period, like in the medieval period, where would Kalipa be used mostly?
Kalipa is, I mean, the earlier Sangam corpus, it
It's
is in Kalitohai. See, later on, as I said, Kalivenba, and then you have, I mean, Kalipa has another feature that I think it has spawned more number of inams than other Asariyam or Venba, right? So you have Kaliviruttam and all kinds of.
Kaliviruttam, because it comes up, but I was just wondering whether there was a thing that this later grammar, like Yaparunga, might be mapping, which is the way in which different sections of this poem get different functions, and like the praise function is very much into this mode after a certain point, right? But maybe that is not as much there in the Kalituhai poems, which are a bit earlier, maybe.
So,
but I was just wondering what corpus, other than the Kalituhai, later grammars could be looking at, which uses this like longer version of Kalipa, which is not a Kalivemba or a Kaliviruttam, which are both stanzaic and short, right? But we are talking about a long articulated poem, really. So I really don't know where they would come up later on. I mean, if I had to look for something like this written in the 14th century.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem I face. As Sasha pointed out, Nicholas brings it from Yaparangalam.
Yeah.
But some of these things don't look logical to me. Right? That's why I'm trying to put it in a different way. Maybe this is not the traditional way of reading these things, right? But there should be some system, right, in that, right? So that's what, if you read any of the treatises on prosody in Tamil, I mean, they come up with examples of what the grammarians say that. But when you feel that it doesn't tick, right? See, what do you do, right? Yeah.
So can I ask two questions of clarification?
Yeah.
So the Ambodarangam, the way of thinking about Ambodarangam as kind of descending units of smaller and smaller length, does that come from Ilambura?
That is no. That's a definition of Ambodarangam
In Tolkappiyam.
In Tolkappiyam itself.
Tolkappia.
Yeah, right. So that's the definition. But the problem isn't empirical. See, when you look at the actual poem, it doesn't work that way very neatly. Right. So only the general thing is that let me put it this way, right? If you look at the number of, the length of adis, right? So with Asiriyappa, you remember that we said that it would have Narchi ready throughout, except the last one. Then we say that it will come in the middle also, then it would be Sindhati, right? So the prosody allows variations in the length of adis, right? But this has a structured variation, right? See, kind of descending order, right? So that is new in this one. I mean, changing the length of adi is not new at all in Tamil prosody, right?
Yeah.
So this seems to be a new way of arranging thing. I mean, it probably later relates to what's called Sittaragavi, etc.
Yeah.
The kind of visual arrangement of the thing. So that's a basic idea, right? Of Ambodarangam.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. You had another question, Andrew?
Yeah, it was about Ilan comments on this poem. So he doesn't use, at least 2 pages that you've given us, he doesn't use Ambodarangam, but he does use this word Kochakam, which I still don't totally understand. So, but you're saying that this poem does include Ambodarangam?
Yes, because he uses Peran, etc. Yeah, one thing I said about Tolkappiyam says, I should admit that I didn't read Tolkappiyam procedural independent of commentaries, right? So when they say Ambodarangam is there in the sutra, I didn't critically look at it where Tolkappiyam says this, or a commentator reads that
into the sutra.
So that's a larger project, you see, I'll have to do. But it is in the commentaries of Tolkappiyam. I am very definite about that. Whether these are the ideas of Tolkappiyam, we'll have to look commentaries critically and do that. And he calls this Talisai Kochaham because this Talisai is non-standard. Non-standard in the sense it's not in Kali Adi.
Okay.
Right? That's why he calls it Kochagam. And the next step is that they would say that it's Kochaga Urupu. Right? So then Kochagam becomes Urupu. Right? So as I said a while ago, then we had to redefine Urupu. Right? See, not mutually exclusive kinds of things, but variations in that also would make a different urupu, right? Yeah. I think that would be a question of how urupu is understood. Right? I thought that you could say that the 4 units are the urupus or kalipa. Okay. All others are variations of that. Not only variation, they are different ways of presenting the same thing. Right? You could have Talisai, that's a urupu, but you can present it in Kali meter or you can present it in Venba meter. So that doesn't make it a separate urupu. Right? That's my logic. Right?
Basically you are seeing them as like basically formal variations.
Yes. Yeah.
But not.
Yeah. So suppose I give an analogy. There are some people with 6 fingers, right?
Yeah.
I would still call it a hand.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a different urupu. Right? But if you add something, they say it's a different thing. Right?
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yeah. No, I get it. I just also wanted to say that. I opened this Beskis grammar that answers my question about Kalipa. He says the work entitled Karihe describes many varieties of this meter, which, as they are now almost obsolete, I do not think it's necessary to mention, but refer the reader to that treatise for information on the subject. So, I mean, certainly by the early 18th century, all of these varieties of Kalipa, other than Kaliveruttam, then he talks about at length after all, are not much used anymore. So this is really a discussion of these early Kaliptohai poems.
Yeah, this is with reference to Ambodarangam.
Yeah, no, in general to all these varieties of the meter and all of like this long form of Kalippa.
I was thinking, I mean, you don't see them very much. What I'm trying here to do is to find an edition of the Ilakana Vilakam to see whether they have, because that's as late as you can get in the tradition to see what the examples would be.
Would be for
one of those, but I'm not there. I can't find the file. So.
I think the overall thing is like this. You see, if you look at, I have something to say about Parivadal, right? That also has all the features of Kalippa.
Okay.
Right? But that goes out of use.
Okay.
Right? You don't have any Parivadal after the Sangam. See, the one hypothesis of Jayaraman is that it became a vehicle for music.
Okay.
Right? And so from Iyalpa it becomes Isaipa.
Okay.
And the Yapu grammarians avoid writing grammar for Isaipa. Right? Okay. They write grammar for Iyalpa.
So
and you see that problem when it comes to Sindhu Padal, right? Whether it is Isaipa or Iyalpa. Right.
Okay.
There are two modern grammars for Sindhupa. One is one by Kulandai, Pulavar Kulandai. He tries to write his grammar on the basis using the units of Yapu, that is like seal. Whereas there is another one, Murugan. He writes a grammar of Sindhupa as a Isaipa, and his unit is talam, not seal, right? So it is tan, that kind of thing. So there is a fundamental difference in the way of analyzing Iyalpa and Isaipa. If that is true, then this kind of Talisai, which is for Isai, went out of considerations of prosodic grammarians.
Yeah, that's very
so only the Kalivenba, these kinds of things, you see, which are not meant to be sung, you see, are for Kalivenba. So I think there is a major shift after Sangam between the Iyalpa and Isaipa, right? And the grammars are different.
Okay. Right. Yeah, that would, I mean, it's unknown history to me, but it's interesting, and actually the fact that some of the names of these Kalippa sections come up in Padam and other kind of musical forms maybe has something to do with this shift that you are talking about.
Not only that, I mean the Osa itself is converted into Pan or Carnatic music, right? Yeah. So the whole thing takes place, right? So let us do that. I mean, just you read the last line of this. See, he says that. The next page, இது ஈண்டு ஓதப்பட்ட உறுப்புக்கள் குறைந்தும் மயங்கியும் மிக்கும் வரப்பெறும். So you could have more or less or changing order. Right? Everything is Kochaham. Right? And for example, Kalittohil Kandugol. Right? So you find them in Kalittohai. Right? And also there is one special feature of this Ambodarangam, that is, he says, முதலடி அருசீர் முடுகியல், இரண்டாவது ஐஞ்சீர் முடுகியல், right? The first line in the second page, right? Okay. The page 432, right? So the muduhiyal, I think it refers to the speed. You see, you have a Tamil mudukku is drive somebody up, right? So the muduhiyal refers to longer line than aravadi, right? And also they say that it comes, all asais are in kuril. So that's a particular kind of line structure, and that's also one special feature of Ambodharanga, right? So you could see that, as well, at least I could see that these kinds of expansions and this kind of specifying the phonetics of this, suggests that the Kalipa is used for two things. You see, one is for its expressive power, right? See, one of one name of a subtype of Kalipa is Vannaha Kalipa, right? Vannaham is simply a description, right? So the Kalipa is suitable for description, and that is one reason for this being Devabani. That is, you can go on describing the god, right, without any Sahasranamam and all that kind. So it is. It has the feature of that. So this kind of expansion of the Kalipa and its internal unit has this purpose of increasing the expressive or descriptive power of the pa, and also the phonetic the intensity of this thing. I think the second one ties very well with the music kind of thing, right? So you could look at Kalipa probably in this way. It's a kind of combination of Yelpa and the Sepa, right? Okay. What I'm trying to tell you now doesn't exactly match with what the commentators have said and modern scholarship says, right? So I gave you a chart of the subtypes of Kalipa by Jayaraman, right? So the tendency is to give a kind of tree structure for the various kinds of things, right, with branching off. And Tolopyam also seems to say that gives one and then it Irva hypodum. So he also seems to think like that. But for me, it might make a better sense to look at these various kinds as a kind of matrix, right? And then when you play with the matrix, each box in the matrix, see, something comes very close to the other matrix. There's a lot of overlap in that. So it's not a very clear tree structure kind of thing. But if you look at commentators or even Nyaparangalam, they have in mind some kind of tree structure. See, Ottal say, and then it divides into two, and then that divides into two each, and like that it goes on. But to look at them as a matrix is purely unconventional, right? So you'll have to think about that, whether it works or not, right? And then at the end of this, the example which Idamborana gives is for Uralkali, right? So this is, you say, Talavan Kutru, Talavi Kutru, etc. So this is in terms of and the third this at the end he says Ippattu Suridaham Indri Mandavaru Kandukolga. So Uralgali doesn't have Suridaham, it doesn't have Taravu, it doesn't have Tanichal. He doesn't mention that, but it doesn't have those things also. It's just a dialogue, you see, between two characters. In terms of prosodic structure, it has at least four nalas, Natsi Radi and then Muchi Radi, that is an Asariyappa kind of thing. So that's basically about the Uralgari. I think a lot of work needs to be done about Kalitohai rather than taking what the commentators say. Right? Okay. then, okay, let us. I already in addition to the four internal units of Kalipa, I already mentioned Ambodharangam, a kind of descending order, and also there is another one called Orubohu, Orubohu Kalipa. Commentators themselves give two meanings of Orubohu. One is a kind of uniform movement of the poem, right? Oruboku, that is one trend or one movement. So if you take it that way, it means that there's an absence of variation in the oral flow of the work. That is Urubu. In that way, you could say that this might be similar to Sendodai. Sendodai is without any todai. Right? You could have a poem, plain poem. But the other meaning which Perasri himself gives is that Orupohu is one unit is dropped. See, one unit has gone away. Right? It's less convincing to me because this is a feature of Kochagam also. Kochagam could have drop or add kind of thing. So Orubohu is not. Dropping one unit is not a specific thing. See, to be called by another name.
But that what the dropping would be from one of these basic urupu of Kalipados, right? Either dropping
four,
Karavo or
right. So they say that, and they give the name of the dropped unit in the beginning. So if you see a description like Talisai Varuboku, it is a Kalipa without Talisai.
Okay.
If you say Taravu Varuboku, it's a Kalipa without Taravu. Right? So I don't know whether you have any explanation. For me, it is a feature of Kochagam. Right? You can drop something, you can add something, you can change the order. Right?
But it's the feature of that specific type of Kalipa that you would call
Orubohu.
No, the Kochagam as a type of Kalipa, one of those four divisions initially, means that you can drop and change things around, and so you would say singling out. But does Orupohu happen in the Kochagam type of Kalipa, or does it happen in the other ones? In which everything...
No, when that happens in a Kalipa, let's say the Talisai Kalipa is the basic unit.
Yeah.
Right? So when you drop something, it becomes Kochagam.
But does it? Or if everything is nice and in order with right Adi, right Talis, but there is only one thing missing, it becomes that thing Orupoku.
That's what they say, Varupoku. But my point is that the dropping one is also a feature of Kochagam.
Yeah.
Unless somebody wants to make a special case out of dropping, out of other things which define Kochagam.
Okay.
Right. So at least for me, there are many things which are not explained. See, about Kalipa, right? So now let us look at the relations between the four paths. See, we did. I mean, one thing which is clear that other than Venba, all the boundaries of all others are porous, right? So you could have the features of another one. So they okay. So we already I mentioned that the features which differentiate one verse from the other is the structure of seed, which is made of asai. I mean, asai by itself doesn't differentiate any of the poems, right? No poem is defined in terms of the asai. So you had to start with seed. One is the structure of seed, that is basically the length of seed. And then and after seed, some seeds are specific to a particular part called uric seed. So that is another feature which would differentiate parts. And then the collocation, the specified collocation for different parts, and also always the osai, which differentiates one part from the other, right? So this is true of all parts except Venba, but there also we should point out that this is true. I mean, that is, the Venba boundaries are watertight only when Venba is autonomous. So we say that Venba could be a Suridam, and Venba could be a unit of Kalipa, that is, when Talisai could be in Venba. And there, this kind of rigidity is not found. Right? So the rigidity of Venba is only when it is an autonomous part. So this would suggest that all paths are kind of have openings, see, for features of other paths. And we also know that even though there are 4 paths, basically there are 2, that is Asariyam and Venba, and Kalipa and Vanjipa could be telescoped into them. That is, Kalipa goes under Venba and Vanjipa goes under Asariyappa. The reasons are, as we, I mean, the Tolkappiyar's statement is Panbura Togupin. So when you classify it based on their characteristics, they are not so distinct, right? So you could group them into 2, right? So so this, I mean, we have many examples of closeness of closeness of Asariyappa and Vanjipa, right? We saw that Vanjedi could come in Asariyappa, and the relationship between Venba and Kalipa, which just now saw, right? There is so much overlap, you see, between the 2, and so this kind of overlap, the Tamil terms used is, one is Nadai. So they say that idu Venba Nadaithu.
Okay.
So Venba Nadaithu means it's another pa which has Venba Nadai.
Okay.
Right? So Venba Nadai would include the seed structure and the Adi structure, right? They also use another word, Venba Yela. So one is the nature. So the nature, I would say that it refers to the oral evocation, the phonetic effect of these things. That's the nature of each pa, and then nadai is about the structural variations of this. So if you can make that distinction, the second one would be primarily based on talai, right? So the phonetic evocation of the phonetic effect would be different. You could have there also you have overlap. And my sense is, again, you could take it kind of hypothesis that you find that if you take Venba and Asariyappa are the major categories, so the mixing, let's say, is you find the features of major categories in the minor categories, not the other way around. So it's a kind of unidirectional. You will find, for example, is this Venba features in Kalipa, not Kalipa features in Venba. I mean, the only exception is Asariyappa having Vanji features. Right? Okay. So, okay. So this, I mean, some of them are, okay. So this kind of overlapping goes beyond recognizing different kinds, right? For example, you take Asariyappa, then when you have Venba Adi, and that Asariyam gets the name Vetradi Viraviya Asariyam, right? So it is Asariyam with other thing, right? And that gets a name Viraviyal Asariyam. If there are no other lines, it's called Vetradi Virava Asariyappa. That's called Innisai Asariyam, etc. So I mean, my point is there is let's say overlap. There is much more overlap empirically in the poems than recognized by the names of kinds of these things, right? So this is an empirical question of how much you have. So this would make I don't know what Andrew thinks. I mean, it would make scanning problematic, right? You do Asariyappa, you would find other tarais or other adis. Then you'll have to say that how to explain that. The traditional grammarians have two explanations. One they call viravu, right? Viravu is two things coming together, and the other is mayakam, right? So my reading is that mayakam could be explained this way: if you have x and y, and if y comes where the x is designed to occur, then that is mayakam, right? Whereas the viravu is certain mixings is allowed to occur, right? There's no expectation that it's not, it should not be there, right? So that is viravu, right? So that is much more liberal than mayakam. So you find both viravu and mayakam, these two kinds of overlap at all levels. You have adi mayakam, adi viravudal, sir mayakam, sir viravudal, except asai. I mean, asai has no mayakam or viravud, right? Yeah. So if you, yeah, okay. So in that, I think I gave a handout, the relationship between paths. So if you,
When did you send it?
The last week, I mean for this class, right?
I cannot find it.
Comparative chart.
Yeah, there is a comparative chart. Oh, I didn't send that. Okay, the relation. Okay, I will send it later. So what I have given here is two examples. One from Silappadigaram and another is from Kurundohai. If you do the scanning, you will see that all kinds of overlaps take place, right? You see, it's I mean. It raises the question about what is the integrity of a poem, right? So I will say that. So there are, what I mean is, empirically, there is so much of overlap, see, in these things, and the theory allows all these things. Then I mentioned about the paripatu, right? I mean, this is also is called paripadal. And this is the only name of a poem which is vinetohai, which is the modifier is a verb, right? Paripadal. And the pari is taken to relate to the verb para, that is spread out. So the paripadal is taken to be a kind of inclusive poem. And the inclusive is, it seems that is as inclusive as Kalitohai. Right? So it also, like Kalitohai has 4 units. Right? And it also allows these kinds of the new units like Ambodarangam, etc. So it is like Kalitohai. So Yedamburnar explains the inclusiveness of Paripattu, that it could have the meters of all 4 paths and all 4 internal units of Kalipa, right? And one thing in which it differs from Kalipa is it doesn't have its own tale. Right? Kalipa doesn't have its own urichir.
Yeah.
Right? Paripadal also doesn't have its own urichir. But Kalipa has its own tale, that is Kani, Kai Nirai is Kalitalai. And Paripadal doesn't even seem to have that.
Okay.
Right? So it's inclusive in that sense, in that sense also. And Paripattu is not associated with any particular Osai. Right. So maybe it's an older one. I don't know why this. These are the Paripattu, right? Tolapia makes it very clear. Idu pavennum iyal neri indri poduvai nitral. So it cannot be classified under any pa. It has everything. You see that. Poduvai nitral, that is Paripadal. And the second one, he says that Tohai nilai indri. So it cannot be grouped in the Tohai of four parts. So it stands separate, you see, from everything. So but this raises the question: what's the difference between Kalipa and Paripattu? Right? Perasiriyar claims that they are different. Claims that Paripattu, in spite of structural similarities, Paripattu is different from Kalipa, and he even goes to the extent of saying that one who cannot find the difference between Kalipa and Paripadal are Seyyul Ariyadar. Right? He simply says they're ignorant about Seyyul, but he doesn't say how to differentiate between the two. His argument that they are different is a kind of negative. It's a kind of negative argument. Says that so if the argument is one recognizes different kinds of Kalipa, right, by the differences between them. So, in that case, one should be able to differentiate Paripattu also from that. He doesn't say why it is, what makes it different, what makes it not a kind of Kalipa, but is a separate part. And Ilamburar also thinks that Paripattu is different from Kalipa, but he goes by the number of lines, the minimum of 25 lines and maximum of 400 lines. Right? But Kalipa also could have these limits. So there is no clear way of differentiating these two, right?
But can I ask you some very basic question? After Tolkapiam, Paripattu or Paripadal as a different pa doesn't occur anymore.
So the one thing about Paripattu is there is no poem which could be called Paripattu in the literary corpus after Sangam.
After Sangam. So it disappears with Sangam basically, after Sangam.
Right. Afterwards it dies out, and Jayaraman hypothesizes that it became purely an Isaipa, therefore it is... Paripadal is not even mentioned in Yapurangala.
Ah, okay. Yeah, right.
So it goes out of prosodic
consideration all in all. Okay.
Yeah.
But Tolkapiam has it quite explicitly. What I don't get the sense, because I haven't read it, is whether in Tolkapiam already it has a weird status, or is it among the past? No.
As I said just now, he clearly says that it is not in Tohai.
It's not in Tohai, but it's its own thing. But does it ever connect it with music?
Paripadal and Kalipa both are connected with music.
Ah, okay.
So then one sutra says that. But Kalipa is included in the pantheon of poems, but not Paripa. The way Tolkapiam mentions Paripa is along with Venba.
Okay.
He says that Neduvan Pate, Kurvan Pate, Kaikilai, Paripadal and Angalam or something like that. So it's again like Kalipa. It has more Venba features, right? And also in terms of the subject beyond that, he doesn't give any definitions of prosodic features of that. I mean, that's the larger question of differentiating or classifying poems on the basis of the themes,
okay,
or on the basis of the structure.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And the last one about Sindhupa, I already mentioned that, which is a later addition, which is more on Taram rather than on Seer. Right? And Swaminathan of the 19th century adds Nulpa as another pa.
Yeah.
Right? But that is against the tradition, because Tolkapi of Sayuriya Sutra mentions Nul, which is Shastra in the sense of Shastra, and that is different from Pa. So Sayur has Pa as well as non-Pa. Right? Nul would go under non-Pa, so it doesn't make sense to consider it under Pa. The other one which carries the name of Pa is Marutpa.
Yeah.
So the Marutpa is basically starts with Venba and ends with Asariyapa. Normally it has four lines, but it is not given the status of a Pa, right? But you can also look at it from the other point of view, that we have seen that other pas could occur. I mean, one pa could occur inside another pa, like Venba and Kalipa. Right? So how Marutpa is different from that kind of mixing of pas.
But does it have all of them? No.
Pardon me?
Does it have all the pa in one for line
No,
stanza?
no. I mean, you can mix the whole pa into another.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say Suridaham, it would be in Asariyapa.
No. Yeah, but I'm just talking about Marulpa.
Yeah.
How is it structured usually?
How structured would be first two lines would be in Venba, the last two lines would be in Asariya.
Okay.
So that's a specific thing, right? So the other ones, when you have Suridaham in Asariyam or Venba, that's not called Marutpa. That's simply called a unit of Vanjipa or Kalipa, right? So here, probably, I think one later commentator also mentioned that it's called Marutpa because unlike other, Kalipa, you have other features. So this is Kalipa and you say Venba occurs inside. Here you cannot say this is Venba where Asariyapa occurs or Asariyapa where Venba occurs.
Yeah.
So the Marul refers to the ambiguity of that.
Okay.
I mean, it's neither here nor there. Anyway, that's not a separate separate part. So then I gave this comparative chart of that. You can look at that. I think one thing I missed is for Vanjipa, I didn't give this seal. That's a Kanichi. I think that's missing. You know that. So that is kind of classification of the various powers into that. Right? Yeah, okay. So I will send a mail about meeting next week. I'll check with Whitney and I think now Andrew and Margarita and Talia
could be there. For me it's fine.
So what I plan to do is just give some general idea of Pavinam, right? There is a lot to read about Pavinam. I'm not very confident about the various Pavinam, but I think the larger question of how Pavinam is different from Pa.
Yeah.
Right? I think we could discuss that. Right?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Okay.
Not me.